In the hush of a dimly lit room, where shadows cling to every corner like silent witnesses, Daniel sits motionless in front of his aging computer. The glow of the screen flickers intermittently, casting ghostly patterns across his face. He's been chasing an answer, a pattern in the endless stream of data that suddenly feels more alive than he anticipated. It's as if the very fabric of reality begins to ripple with invisible waves, subtle, almost imperceptible, curling at the edges like distressed glass. A faint hum, almost inaudible yet insistent, begins to grow beneath the surface of his comm. At first, it's just a whisper, an anomaly in his environment, and he attributes it to his mind playing tricks, exhaustion, or perhaps the static of old electronics. But then, the glitches start happening. His screen distorts, shimmering as if underwater, pixels scrambling into chaotic mosaics. The static on his speakers crackles louder, dissonant, unnatural. A sudden flicker in his peripheral vision makes him blink, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. As he leans forward, eyes narrowing, the room begins to shift subtly. The wall behind him seems to ripple, as though made of liquid glass, distorting with every passing second. His heartbeat quickens, each thump echoing louder than the last as the unseen forces tighten their invisible grip. The familiar outlines of his surroundings become smeared, colors bleeding into one another, shapes warping. The room feels alive, breathing in sync with the growing chaos within his mind. Then, with a deafening crack, like the breaking of fragile porcelain, the world around him splits apart. His vision blurs, and the sensation of reality unraveling floods his senses. Light fractures in shining shards, and suddenly, Daniel finds himself no longer in his cluttered apartment but standing in a place that defies every law of nature. He stares in disbelief at where he is now, an endless expanse of yellowish, dull glow washing over everything. The air is thick and stale, carrying a faint scent of dampness and decay. The walls, if they can be called that, stretch on forever, lined with stained, peeling wallpaper and what appear to be abandoned, sagging workstations. The echoes of distant footsteps seem to tap sharply in the silence, non-existent yet deafening. It's a labyrinth that stretches into infinity, an endless maze illuminated by unsettling, flickering fluorescent lights that buzz and hum with a persistent drone. This is no coincidence, no glitch in his system. It's a portal, a breach into what the internet forums euphemistically call the Backrooms. The place is infamous, a myth spun from digital ghost stories, but for Daniel, it's disturbingly real. His mind races, grasping for familiarity, for logic, yet all he finds is this unending, oppressive yellow maze. He takes a tentative step forward, feeling the muddy, stained floor beneath his feet, each footfall echoing strangely in this hollow space. His eyes flick around, catching fleeting glimpses of shadows lurking at the edges, shapes that seem to flicker just beyond the flickering lights. An icy trickle of fear crawls up his spine, but curiosity, the desperate need to understand, drives him onward. Then, he hears it. A faint whisper carried by the stale air, so subtle he doubts he's really heard it at all. But the feeling persists, an unearthly murmur, almost a plea or warning. It sends a shiver through him, making his skin crawl. He instinctively steps back, searching desperately for an exit, a door, something familiar to connect with. But the corridor offers no refuge. Only endless sameness, a monotonous stretch interrupted occasionally by grotesque, distorted shapes that seem to flicker like faulty static. The silence is oppressive, except for that whisper, that faint reminder that something else shares this place. Suddenly, from the shadows, two faint, glowing eyes appear, hovering, unblinking, watching. The presence is cold and calculated, devoid of empathy. Daniel freezes, heart pounding against his chest as those unnatural, luminescent orbs fixate on him. They seem to pulse and waver, revealing nothing but a predatory intelligence lurking just beyond comprehension. He recognizes the threat, the unspoken warning. This is no place for the unprepared. The entity's gaze burns into him, a glimpse of something ancient and unknowable. And for a moment, Daniel feels the primal urge to run, to escape this nightmare. Yet he's rooted in place, caught between terror and the compelling need to uncover whatever secrets this realm holds. In this moment of suspended silence, the boundary between the known and the unfathomable is shattered. The glitch in his reality has opened a gateway to something darker, something that files itself away in the shadowy recesses of human consciousness. A haunted labyrinth where the echoes of lost souls, digital fears, and ancient entities collide. With each passing second, the line blurs further. Reality's cracks deepen, revealing that this place isn't just an anomaly. It's a portal to the depths of human fears. A space where the familiar turns uncanny and evil lurks behind every flicker of light. And in the midst of this chaos, Daniel begins to grasp, these glitches, these distortions, they're not accidents. They're signs, warning him of deeper mysteries, of worlds hidden beneath the veneer of everyday life, waiting patiently in the darkness, whispering their secrets just beyond reach. As the entity's glowing eyes fade into the shadows, Daniel's mind spirals into the abyss of questions. What is this place? Why now? And how many others have been pulled into the endless labyrinth of the Backrooms, lost to its ghostly corridors, forever seeking a way out but never finding one? The first encounter has ended, but the story, and the darkness, has only just begun. As the corridors stretch endlessly before her, a flickering light above casts jagged shadows on the peeling walls, pulsing with every hesitant step she takes. Her footsteps echo in the oppressive silence, broken only by the warped hum of something unseen reverberating through the maze. The air is thick, suffocating, yet chillingly cold, each breath sharp and shallow, as if the very atmosphere is designed to disorient. She pauses, eyes darting around, trying to anchor herself amidst the twisted labyrinth of hallways that seem to stretch in every direction, defying logic and reason. The maze feels alive, shifting subtly as if harboring a consciousness of its own. Doors, some slightly ajar, others sealed shut with rusted nails, line the corridors like silent sentinels. Strange, unsettling noises punctuate the silence. Whispered voices that seem just out of reach, faint scratching sounds on the walls, a distant clang that echoes like the ringing of an abandoned bell. Her heartbeat quickens, pounding loudly in her ears, making her senses hyper-aware. Every shadow flickers mischievously, distorting her perception, flickering between the familiar and the sinister. She presses onward, clutching her trembling hand to her chest, as if her resolve alone can keep her safe from the unknown horrors lurking within. Her footsteps falter as a sudden rustling sound emerges behind her, sharp and sudden like a predator stalking its prey. She spins around, trying to pinpoint the source, but only shadows dance menacingly on the walls. A cold sweat beads on her forehead, and her breathing becomes ragged. She knows she's no longer wandering aimlessly. She's caught in the maze's sinister grip, with no clear exit in sight. Suddenly, a faint melody drifts through the corridors, a lullaby, warped and twisted into an unsettling tune. It's faint but enough to make her freeze, heart pounding painfully in her chest. Her instinct tells her to run, but her limbs feel paralyzed by fear and confusion. As she follows the haunting sound, it grows louder, more distorted, more distortedly human. Her footsteps falter again, and she halts in a small alcove, pressing her back against the wall, desperately trying to piece together where she might be or where she should go next. In the corner of her eye, she notices a faint flicker, a shadow flickering at the edge of her vision, shifting and contorting. She turns sharply, but nothing is there. Just more endless shadows flickering on the peeling walls. Her mind races. Is it her sense of reality slipping away? Or is something else watching her, creeping closer with every step? An ominous presence begins to settle in her peripheral vision, an invisible weight pressing down, known only by the creeping dread crawling up her spine. Then, it happens. She catches the reflection of a faint, dark figure in a broken mirror hanging crookedly on the wall, staring back at her. It's not her reflection. Or maybe it is. Distorted, twisted into a mask of shadows and despair. Her breath catches in her throat as realization dawns. She's not alone. Something else is nearby, hidden yet near enough to feel, stalking her through the maze's endless corridors. Her eyes dart around wildly, searching for an escape route that isn't there, knowing deep down that this nightmare cannot be escaped as long as the maze exists. The hallway narrows suddenly, forcing her to squeeze through a tight passage that feels almost suffocating. As she moves forward, the whispers escalate into a cacophony, a chorus of voices screaming truths she doesn't want to face, lies she cannot ignore. The darkness flickers alive, crawling along the walls like living veins, blurring the line between reality and hallucination. Every step she takes feels heavier, as if gravity itself turns against her, pulling her deeper into the labyrinthine abyss. A shadow brushes her peripheral vision again, this time more deliberate, more threatening. She spins around, heart pounding loudly enough to drown out all other sounds. Her eyes scan the darkness, the shadows writhe and curl, forming vague, indistinct figures that seem to watch her, to judge her. Her mind screams that she must escape, but the maze refuses to yield. It's as if the structure itself resists her, feeding on her fear. Somewhere in the distant corridors, the faint crack of a door opening echoes out like a sinister invitation. Her instincts tell her to run, to find the way out, yet every step she takes feels uncertain, as if she's walking into the trap she's been forced into merely by existing in this nightmare. The presence stalking her becomes tangible now, palpable, an oppressive, malevolent force lurking just beyond her sight, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Its intentions are unknown, perhaps unseen intentionally, but its hunger is unmistakable. A sudden gust of icy wind sweeps past her, carrying a whisper in a voice no one can truly hear. You can't escape us. Her stomach twists with terror. She feels the weight of unseen eyes piercing through her, observing her vulnerability with slow, calculated patience. The walls close in slightly, the shadows deepen into darker shades, and for a moment, she's certain that the maze isn't merely a place but a prison designed to trap her mind, her will, her very soul. She reaches a fork, left or right. The options blur before her, and time seems to stretch impossibly, her confusion growing with every heartbeat. The maze begins to sense her weakness, shrinking the light, amplifying the shadows, feeding her disorientation. The sinister presence tightens its grip, an omnipresent, stalking shadow that seems to breathe just behind her. The faint whispers now turn into guttural growls, silent promises of despair and madness. She can't quite tell whether her sanity is slipping or if she's truly being hunted. As her vision flickers between despair and resolve, she recognizes one bitter truth. Escaping this maze isn't as simple as finding the door or running blindly into the dark. The darkness has infiltrated her mind, twisting her thoughts, making her question reality itself. The presence lurks silently, waiting to pounce at her moment of weakness, an avatar of the maze's true nature. The lines between her fears and reality dissolve into a nightmarish blur, and she realizes with chilling certainty, the labyrinth is not just a structure, but a predator, feeding on confusion, despair, and the helpless. And as the shadows swallow her in their endless embrace, she understands that this is just the beginning, that the maze knows her, and it's only getting started in its hunt. The suffocating silence of the backrooms shrouded everything in an oppressive hush. The protagonist moved cautiously, each step echoing faintly on the damp, yellowed floors, as if even the ground itself was holding its breath. The sickly glow of flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie, wavering shadows across endless corridors, and every turn seemed to lead to nowhere, and everywhere, all at once. It was as if the very walls whispered secrets too terrible to fully understand, beckoning and warning in a whisper only the mind could hear. Suddenly, the air grew colder, a presence lurking just beyond the edge of perception. The protagonist felt it before seeing it, a prickling sensation crawling up the spine, like static electricity waiting to discharge. Their eyes darted around, searching for the source of a disturbance they could not see, only felt. The faint, unplaceable sound of shifting unseen entities drifted through the stale air, and with each passing moment, the sensation intensified. "Don't look," a voice in the back of their mind urged, but it was impossible to ignore. Every nerve screamed to look away. Yet their gaze was drawn compulsively forward, deeper into the maze of endless, yellowed halls. Then, a shadow. Not a shape, not a figure, but a darkness that moved with a purpose. Just beyond the corner, not directly visible, but felt, a presence that flickered at the edge of perception, convincing the mind that the unseen was watching, waiting. The protagonist froze, heart pounding fiercely in the chest, grounded by a primal fear that burned hotter with each passing second. They tried to steady their trembling hands, but even that was a challenge in this relentless realm of uncertainty. The tension built as the unseen entities manipulated the space, perhaps testing, toying, drawing nearer with each faint shift of the shadows or crackle of static that sounded almost like a whisper from the depths of impossibility. These entities were not like any creature from the world they remembered. They were whispers made flesh, sensations made sound, nightmares made tangible. Sometimes, glimpses flickered, an outline here, an iridescent gleam there, only to vanish when the gaze focused, leaving behind an afterimage of dread etched onto the consciousness. The protagonist tried to resist the mounting panic, hiding behind a dilapidated bin in the darkness, breathing shallowly. But the fear was relentless, clawing at the edges of their mind, threatening to drown their reason. Their every thought was assaulted by images of what could be lurking, tentacled shapes, grotesque distortions, eyes staring from the void. The entities did not need to speak, their presence was enough to communicate terror and dominance. They beckoned with silent threats, looming just beyond understanding, their motives inscrutable, their hunger palpable. And then, just as despair threatened to swallow them whole, a flicker of awareness surfaced. Survival might be possible. An underground rumor among the trapped souls hinted that the entities could be banished, kept at bay, if only one possessed enough resolve or cunning. There was a way, but it came with a terrible price. The knowledge of what must be given up, truth, morality, part of the very self, etched a heavy, bitter weight into the revelation. To survive, to be free, one might have to accept the cost of their own humanity. As the shadows inched closer, the protagonist's mind raced. Should they fight, hide, run? Or accept the bargain? The choice was a cruel, impossible dilemma. Each option threatened to unravel what little sense of self they could cling to in this nightmare. The entities continued their silent approach, their presence gnawing at the edges of reality, whispering promises of escape or eternal torment. The faint glow of a distant hallway beckoned, a fragile hope amidst the surrounding darkness. But venturing into the unknown might trigger their wrath, or reveal secrets better left buried. The tension crescendoed as they made their decision, whether to confront or to surrender quietly. The moment stretched endlessly, each heartbeat a cruel reminder of the thin line between survival and complete annihilation. The entity's whispers grew louder, their darkness swirling into a storm of chaos and fear. In that suffocating silence, a final, unspoken choice was made. And the echoes of that choice would resonate through the endless corridors of the backrooms, echoing the unuttered truth of what it means to face unfathomable entities, truths that would never fully be erased. The flickering glow of a dimly lit corridor stretches endlessly, shadows dancing across peeling wallpaper and cracked concrete. Our protagonist moves cautiously, every footstep echoing softly in the oppressive silence. There's a sense of anticipation hanging thick in the air, overtaken by an undercurrent of dread. Somewhere within this tangled labyrinth lies a truth, buried beneath layers of decay and forgotten memories. They instinctively run their fingers along the rough surface of the wall, feeling the faint indentations, the subtle alterations, marks, scratches, symbols, all seemingly waiting for discovery. They notice a faint series of arcs carved into the wall, almost like a code or a map, half concealed beneath years of grime. Their heart quickens. Could this be a guide? The symbols seem deliberately placed, pointing to specific directions, whispering secrets only the brave, or the desperate, dare to decipher. As they examine the markings, a strange resonance takes hold, an unexplainable sense that these are more than mere scratches. They're messages, perhaps warnings or directions left by those who came before, or by entities that watch from the shadows. With trembling hands, they trace the symbols, feeling a subtle vibration beneath their fingertips. A chill runs down their spine. The air thickens, as if reality itself is shifting in response to their discovery. It dawns on them that the backrooms, this endless maze of decay and silence, might have a purpose, a hidden structure beyond what was originally assumed. These clues suggest that perhaps there are deliberate guides here, pathways crafted by some unknown force, luring the curious towards an exit, or into deeper danger. Driven by a surge of mixed curiosity and fear, they navigate through corridors marked with similar strange glyphs. The environment seems to pulse with life, impossibly alive in its stillness. Like the walls themselves are whispering secrets meant only for those willing to listen. As they turn a corner, a faint glow emanates from a narrow fissure in the floor, revealing a meticulously scrawled diagram alongside cryptic symbols. It looks like a map, a blueprint of sorts, outlining a sequence, a pattern, perhaps an escape route. They study the diagram intently, feeling a strange reassurance from the carefully drawn lines. But beneath that reassurance lurks a shadow of doubt. Gathering their courage, they follow the map's guidance, step by cautious step, deeper into the maze. The corridor widens into a chamber, a space that seems almost deliberately constructed, with walls lined with strange, pulsating markings that shift subtly when not directly observed. The air here feels heavier, charged with an ominous energy. In that moment of tension, the protagonist notices a faint, rhythmic thumping, a heartbeat, perhaps, coming from behind a door at the end of the chamber. The markings on the walls seem to pulse in response, almost synchronized with the sound. A mix of dread and precious hope grips them. Could this be a way out? Or is it a trap? Their finger hesitates over the doorknob, pounding a silent prayer for clarity, for answers. As they turn the doorknob, the door creaks open, revealing a room filled with relics, weathered journals, scraps of paper, photographs, evidence of those who had once tried to escape or unravel the secrets of the backrooms. Their eyes scan over the frantic notes, the scribbled coordinates, the desperate sketches. One journal, lying open, catches their attention. It documents a journey, theories about the nature of these corridors, hints at a consciousness behind the maze, alive and cunning. The more they uncover, the more the pieces of the puzzle fall into place. The Backrooms is not just an endless space of decay and shadows. It's a living entity, a sentient trap that feeds on curiosity and fear. The markings and clues, while seemingly guides, are actually part of its intricate plan, designed to lure the unwary into its depths. The realization hits hard. These guides are not to be trusted. They are bait, crafted by a consciousness that manipulates both space and mind. Suddenly, the air dims, and the oppressive silence is broken by a low, guttural whisper, just at the edge of comprehension. The markings flicker and shift as if alive, pulsating in a language beyond human understanding. The walls seem to breathe, expanding and contracting, as if the maze itself is alive, watching, waiting for the next step. Our protagonist, trembling but resolute, notices a final symbol, an arc encircling a small, unassuming hole in the wall, like a hidden hatch. Their instinct screams that this is a pivotal moment. If they proceed, they could find answers, a way back, and redemption from the nightmare. Or they could succumb to the darkness that lurks behind. With a deep breath, they reach toward the hatch, feeling the cold surface beneath their fingertips. As they pry it open, darkness spills out, a void that promises minimal safe passage but also the truth of the maze's core. In that darkness, they realize that they've uncovered only a fragment of something far greater, a cosmic secret woven into the very fabric of the Backrooms. The symbols, the maps, the whispers, they're all pieces of a puzzle that extends beyond this labyrinth. The maze isn't just a trap. It's a mirror reflecting the primal fears, the forgotten truths buried within us all. Every step forward is a step into the unknown, a dangerous descent into the depths of what lurks within the walls and within ourselves. And as they vanish into the darkness, only their final breath echoes back into the empty corridors, a haunting reminder that the secrets hidden in the walls are alive, watching, waiting, and perhaps, just perhaps, ready to reveal the ultimate truth. That the Backrooms are not merely a prison, but a reflection of our deepest, most concealed fears. In the shrouded silence of the early dawn, the faintest rays of sunlight struggled to pierce through the blackened clouds that perpetually lingered overhead. The air hung heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something rotten, an acrid reminder of the darkness that had seeped into every crevice of this forsaken place. The survivor moved cautiously, every step echoing loudly in the emptiness, as if daring fate to notice their attempt at escape. Their heart hammered in their chest, not just from fear but from the certainty that with every move, they hemming closer to what they had been desperately trying to outrun, the nightmare that haunted this place. Walls, once they believed, held the echoes of their screams, but those echoes had long since been muffled by layers of silence and despair. Today, they pressed onward, eyes darting nervously, ears alert for any sound, any indication that freedom, or even survival, was within reach. The plan was simple. Slip away quietly, follow the faintest trail of hope, and maybe, just maybe, find a way out of this labyrinth of shadows. But deep down, they knew better. No escape came without a price, no matter how tempting the promise of freedom appeared. As they navigated the labyrinthine corridors, a sudden, guttural noise shattered the silence, the unmistakable, guttural growl that sent icy dread coursing through their veins. It was a monstrous entity, something that defied understanding, its form a grotesque amalgamation of twisted flesh and shadow. Its eyes, unblinking and luminous, tracked the survivor's every move with predatory patience. The creature's presence was overwhelming, a living nightmare encased in the flesh of some abomination that had long ago lost its humanity. Frozen in place, the survivor's thoughts spiraled into chaos. This was not part of the plan. The creature hadn't shown itself before, hadn't betrayed its lurking presence. Was this the cost of trying to escape? The walls around them seemed to close in, suffocating, as if mocking the very idea of escape. They realized, with trembling certainty, that what lay on the other side was not merely a physical barrier but a threshold into madness, into oblivion. To continue was to risk everything, themselves, their mind, their soul. Suddenly, the creature lunged, a blur of meshed flesh and snarling fury. The survivor dove, instinct overriding reason, scrambling away in frantic desperation. Running blindly through the corridors, they searched for anything, any weak spot, any exit, any sliver of hope. But experience had already taught them, the monster was relentless, insatiable. Every turn, every shadow held the potential for their demise. A terrible choice presented itself: halt and face the beast or press onward into the darkness, risking everything. The survivor paused, breathing ragged, mind racing. And then, fleetingly, an idea formed, a reckless, desperate gamble. They knew what they had to do. Summoning every ounce of courage, they veered toward a narrow passage, hoping to jolt the creature with a risky trap. But the creature was swift, always lurking just behind. In that critical moment, a figure emerged from the shadows, an ally, perhaps, or a specter of the past, who blocked the monster's path, buying the survivor precious seconds. But that sacrifice came at a terrible cost. The ally was torn apart, screams echoing through the darkness, a visceral reminder of the price paid for hope. The survivor watched, helpless, as the body was dragged away, leaving behind only the scent of death and regret. The creature's roar echoed in their ears as they stumbled forward, haunted by the sight of the sacrifice and the grim realization that escape might mean more than physical death. It could mean losing their very sanity. The lines between reality and nightmare blurred as the survivor sprinted through the maze, heart pounding with the knowledge that every step away from their captors brought them closer to the edge of madness. What had seemed like a path to freedom now threatened to swallow their mind whole. Exhausted and broken, they found themselves in a chamber more sinister than any other, a cold, cavernous space where shadows twisted and writhed like living entities. In the dim light, they saw symbols etched into the walls, symbols that pulsed with an unnatural glow. It was as if the very space was alive, feeding off their fear, threatening to consume what little sanity remained. The survivor realized, with visceral clarity, that in their bid for escape, they might be surrendering to a darkness far worse than the physical, the darkness within themselves. As they sank to their knees, trembling and gasping, a whisper seemed to emanate from the shadows, a voice, faint yet insidious, urging them to surrender, to accept the inevitable. The price of escape was not just death but the erasure of self, a slow unraveling of identity, a descent into madness from which there might be no return. They understood then that some places are meant to be left untouched, some horrors to be left undisturbed. And yet, beneath that despair, a flicker of defiance remained, a stubborn ember refusing to be snuffed out. For even amid the darkness, the survivor clung to the hope that perhaps, somewhere on the other side of this nightmare, there was a dawn still waiting to break. But the price had already been paid in blood, sacrifice, and shattered sanity. Nothing would be the same again, not after this. The monsters roar, the sacrifices cry, the echoes of the shadows. They all whispered the same chilling truth. Escaping this place might mean losing everything, even oneself. And in the end, perhaps that's the greatest nightmare of all, that some doors, once opened, can never be truly closed. The corridors stretched endlessly, a sickening liminal horizon that seemed to distort with every step. The flickering hum of unidentifiable machinery echoed through the stale air, blending with the distant, haunting echo of footsteps, his own, reverberating amidst walls that shouldn't exist. His mind was a tangled mass of confusion and fading hope, yet something deep inside urged him forward, as if a faint whisper was guiding him through the darkness. The realization was slowly settling, a revelation that gnawed at the edges of his consciousness. This place was more than just a maze. It was a fractured dimension, a broken reflection of reality itself. As he moved through the labyrinthine halls, images started to fragment and shimmer at the edges of his vision. Shadows danced in the corners, flickering like dying flames, and the very fabric of what he knew as reality began to tear apart. His surroundings trembled, as if the walls were made of brittle glass, ready to shatter at any moment. Visions flooded his mind, snapshots of a reality that once was, now splintered into chaos. He saw flashes of a world outside, of streets once bustling with life, now eerily silent. Buildings crumbling, skies darkening, the distant screams of a broken earth, and then, suddenly, the images dissolved, replaced by the oppressive sameness of these endless corridors. The sound of distant echoes turned into whispers, soft, sinister voices whispering truths that no sane mind could handle. They spoke of origins, of an ancient fracture that left this dimension scarred and bleeding. The realization was staggering. The backrooms were not simply an accidental maze built of endless, monotonous rooms. They were a fractured remnant of some greater, more complex universe, an echo of a world shattered into countless pieces, each fragment hiding its own nightmares, its own horrors. Somehow, this dimension seeped into existence through a tear, an opening, bridging the fabric of reality and the unknown. He felt it in his bones, an acute awareness that this place was an entity, alive in its own horrific way. Perhaps it fed on failure and despair. The longer he stayed, the more distorted the walls became, writhing like living flesh, pulsating with a malicious vitality. The fractured dimension was clawing at him, trying to consume his very essence, its fractured nature a mirror to the chaos of a universe broken beyond repair. Every step brought him closer to understanding that the maze wasn't just a prison but a reflection of a universe so damaged it could no longer hold itself together. And then, out of the chaos, a luminous flicker caught his eye. A strange, shimmering portal materialized in the distance, unstable yet beckoning. Its edges shimmered with iridescent light, casting surreal shadows that danced and warped. His heartbeat quickened. Could this be the way out? Or another trap? The whispers grew louder, more insistent, warning him of unseen dangers lurking on the other side. Yet hope, a fragile, trembling hope, dared him closer. Each step towards the portal was a leap of faith, risking everything he had left. As he approached, the fractured landscape trembled violently, and the fabric of distorted reality threatened to tear apart entirely. The portal pulsed with energy, a gateway that promised escape but demanded a price, an entry into an unknown, perhaps more dangerous fracture of this fractured universe. With trembling hands, he reached out and touched its surface, feeling a jolt run through his spine as if the very fabric of dimensions responded to his touch. The swirling lights beckoned him, An invitation that was as seductive as it was terrifying. In that moment, he understood the terrifying truth. This fractured universe was more than a maze. It was a battleground for realities, for fractured worlds colliding, bleeding into one another. Each corridor was a wound in the fabric of existence, each shadow a fragment of a broken universe bleeding through the cracks. The portal was not just a way out, it was a gateway deeper into the unknown, into the heart of the chaos that had created this nightmare. As he hesitated, caught between the promise of salvation and the dread of the unknown, the whispers intensified, transforming into a cacophony of voices. Some pleading, some warning, many hissing threats from the fractured depths. He took a deep breath, knowing that stepping through that portal could mean salvation, or it could mean being lost forever in a universe more fractured and dangerous than he could comprehend. This was the true nature of the Backrooms. An ever-shifting, fractured dimension bleeding into our reality, a mirror of chaos and despair, and perhaps, the only way out was to confront that chaos head-on. He stepped forward, crossing the threshold into the luminous glow, and in that moment, everything shifted, walls dissolving, the ceiling melting away, replaced by swirling chaos that threatened to swallow him whole. The last thing he saw was the portal flickering like a dying star, promising salvation amid the destruction. His mind was consumed with questions about what lurked on the other side, about the fracture that had birthed this nightmare, about whether he was truly escaping or merely stepping deeper into a broken universe that would swallow him whole. The echoes of the dimension he was leaving echoed behind him, an uncertain, haunting reminder that he was now part of something far more vast and terrifying than he had ever imagined. The air hangs heavy, thick with the scent of desperation as the protagonist maneuvers through the shadowed corridor, every step echoing like a heartbeat in the silence. Shadows flicker along the cracked walls, whispering secrets of fears long buried. The flickering glow of the portal pulses ahead, a beacon of fragile hope threatening to ignite a desperate last chance. Their breath hiccups, ragged and uneven, as they push forward, eyes fixed on the shimmering threshold, a fragile barrier between what was and what might be. Behind them, a chorus of guttural, snarling sounds erupts, closer now, relentless in their pursuit. The entities, twisted, malformed specters of something ancient and malevolent, stretch from the darkness, their forms shifting and convulsing as if made of shadows and nightmare. They claw at the air, reaching with elongated fingers that shimmer with an unnatural darkness, threatening to pull the protagonist back into the abyss from which they just escaped. Every inch gained feels like hours, every breath a stolen gift. The protagonist's hand crashes against the portal's surface, trembling but unwavering. It's trembling because hope is a fragile thing, easily shattered, and because they can feel the presence of something, or someone, just behind them, closing the space between life and eternal specter. As their fingers brush the shimmering edge, a sudden surge of adrenaline floods their veins, igniting a surge of courage. They fling themselves forward, tumbling through the portal just as claws rake the air behind them, a desperate, chaotic leap into the unknown. Suddenly, a rush of light explodes around them, a disorienting, blinding cascade of colors and sounds, filling their senses with a cacophony of chaos. Reality twists. They feel their body ripple and distort as the portal engulfs them, pulling them into another realm. For a moment, the world around them splinters into fragments. Screams of the entities echoing in the distance, the portal's final surge of energy flickering like a dying star, and then, silence. An oppressive silence. They stumble onto solid ground, breath catching in their throat, uncertain whether they're free or still caught in the web of the nightmare. A pause, a moment of tenuous relief, stretches before them. The landscape they find themselves in is alien. Twisted trees with gnarled branches, a sky smeared in unnatural hues, shadows that seem to breathe with a life of their own. The haunting realization settles. The escape was just an illusion of safety, a fleeting glow in an endless dark. They look over their shoulder, instinct and dread guiding their gaze back toward the portal. It's a faint, flickering outline, still there, but unstable, flickering like an ember in the breeze, promising danger still lurks just beyond reach. But just as they turn their attention forward, a cold wave of terror washes over them, the sense that they are not alone. An unshakable feeling whispers that something has followed, lurking in the shadows, waiting patiently as the portal's glow dims and disappears altogether. A new threat surrounds them, silent and unwavering. They are not yet safe. The dread crystallizes. Escape was only a chapter in an ongoing nightmare. The darkness that chased them through the portal now resides within them, an echo of the horror they fled. In this realm of endless shadows, survival hinges not just on escape, but on facing the unthinkable. Every step taken is haunted by the knowing, an unspoken truth, that wherever they go, something persists. Something remembers, something will always follow. The first hope has turned into a bitter realization. The darkness is patient, and it never truly lets go. The scene ends with the protagonist standing alone amid the strange, silent landscape, their heart pounding with a strange mixture of fear and resolve, knowing that the nightmare is far from over, and that the true chase has only just begun. The world around her shimmered like a fractured mirror, a reflection unmistakably darker and more distorted than before. She blinked, expecting the familiar landscape, the city she once knew, to come into focus. But instead, everything felt off, like waking up in a place that wasn't quite real, an unsettling echo of her memories twisted beyond recognition. The air was thick with silence, punctuated only by the faint, unnatural hum that seemed to seep from the cracks of the city's faded skyline. Shadows clung to every corner, moving just slightly when she dared to look away, as if the darkness was alive, watching her, waiting. Her feet crunched softly on the cracked pavement, the sound unnaturally loud in the oppressive quiet. Her heartbeat hammered in her chest, a rhythmic reminder that she was alive. At least, she thought so. Every instinct screamed to run, to escape whatever it was she'd walked into. Yet, a creeping sense of dread insinuated that perhaps she hadn't escaped at all. Perhaps she never truly left the nightmare behind. It was as if her surroundings had been frozen in the moment she left, yet this reality was warped, corrupted, as if the universe had decided to play a cruel game of retribution. Street lights flickered overhead, casting long, sinister shadows that didn't match the flickering bulb's persistent pulse. The buildings seemed to lean inward, their windows dark and void of life, yet sometimes, she swore she saw faint, fleeting reflections in the glass. Dim faces, broken and hollow, staring back at her from a place she hadn't thought to visit again. She tried to remember how she'd gotten here, but her mind was foggy, clouded by a relentless haze of confusion. Was this the end of her journey? Or was this just the beginning of an even darker chapter? It was hard to tell anymore, especially when the very fabric of her reality seemed to warp and fold in on itself. As she moved forward, the surroundings grew more bizarre. They defied logic, slipping between familiar and strange with each hesitant step. Buildings seemed to breathe, their surfaces swelling and contracting like lungs, pulsating with a sickening rhythm. Shadows flickered with a life of their own, darting just beyond her sight, playing tricks on her mind. Every turn she took, she felt the weight of invisible eyes watching her, scrutinizing her every move as if she'd become a subject in a cosmic experiment she couldn't understand. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught her eye. She froze, her breath hitching. A figure standing in the distance, perfectly immobile, yet undeniably there. The figure's silhouette was obscured, but its presence felt thick with malevolence. It beckoned with a slow, deliberate motion, and for a terrible moment, she hesitated. To approach meant embracing whatever horrors awaited. To stay still might condemn her to being seen, understood, or worse, trapped. Her instincts screamed, but curiosity and despair pushed her forward. As she stepped closer, the figure's features, or what she thought were features, flickered into view, an indistinct, shadowy face with hollow eyes that glowed faintly beneath the dim light. Her heart shuddered in her chest. She recognized the face but couldn't place it. Or maybe it was never meant to be recognized. "You're not really here," it whispered, a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, echoing inside her mind. "This isn't about escape. It's about what you left behind, and what's waiting for you when you're brave enough to look." The words echoed, reverberating through the hollow chambers of her mind, slicing through her resolve like shards of broken glass. Her knees buckled, tears streaming down her face as horror and revelation collided. Was she trapped, or did she never leave? Was her escape a lie, a fleeting illusion created by her fractured consciousness? Suddenly, the ground beneath her trembled, and the city around her warbled like a distorted reflection in a cracked mirror. She felt her consciousness stretching, fracturing at the edges, her senses overwhelmed, her grasp on reality slipping further away. The familiar became unfamiliar, the safe turned deadly, the truth a lie. She realized with a chilling certainty, she was not in control anymore. The nightmare had entered her mind, the loop, the trap, the endless maze that refused to let her go. A pulse, loud and relentless, began to throb in her head, like a heartbeat that wasn't her own. She clenched her fists, fighting to hold onto her thoughts, to stay anchored in this nightmare, but her vision blurred. The shadows grew bolder, more aggressive. The city warped into a hellscape, a place with no escape, only variations of her fears and regrets playing out in endless, looping cycles. And then, just as despair threatened to drown her, a flicker of something unexpected, a glimmer of light. Not a bright, welcoming light, but a dull, flickering candle in the darkness. It flickered once, twice, then steadied, casting long, uncertain shadows. The shape appeared again, this time clearer. It was herself, but not the version she knew. It was a mirror of her fears, her guilt, a reflection of the darkness she carried within. The realization hit her like a lightning strike. Was this her punishment, or her salvation, or perhaps a cruel game of pretend? She opened her mouth to scream, but her voice was swallowed by the silence. The shadows writhed closer, as if they had been waiting for her to make her choice, her move. In that chilling moment, everything changed. The flickering figure in her reflection reached out, hand trembling but firm, offering her a choice: to stay lost in this endless afterworld or to seize the fragile thread of hope dangling faintly before her. She reached out instinctively, fingers trembling but determined, to grasp the truth, to break free or to succumb entirely. And then, the scene dissolved into darkness. A new dawn or a new nightmare? In the shadows, the whispers continued, whispering secrets only she could hear. A faint, sinister smile appeared behind the veil of darkness, a promise or a threat. Fields of hope flickered like dying embers, ready to reignite, or be snuffed out forever. Was this her escape, or had she fallen into a deeper trap? The line between reality and nightmare blurred further, and with her heart pounding in her ears, she realized she was perhaps never really free, only awakening into a darker, more insidious world. Or perhaps it was all just the beginning of an even more horrifying cycle. As her mind spiraled, she understood that in this place, whether a return to reality or a descent into hell, she might be forever lost, her echoes fading into an endless abyss she could never escape. In the suffocating silence of the dim, flickering corridor, every echo feels like a whisper from the past, an echo that refuses to fade, haunting the edges of reality itself. The air is thick with an unnatural stillness, punctuated only by the distant hum of machinery that seems to be both everywhere and nowhere at once. The protagonist's breaths are shallow, each one a struggle against an invisible weight pressing down on the chest, as their eyes dart from shadow to shadow, searching for any sign of certainty, any hint that escape is within reach. A sudden, piercing sound fractures the silence, a whisper, perhaps, or merely the crackle of old wires, but it pierces through the fog of doubt, igniting a flicker of hope that quickly quells itself. Their heart pounds against the ribs, a primal reminder that in this place, control is an illusion. Walls seem to shift subtly, corridors stretch into uncharted darkness, twisting into labyrinths that seem impossible to navigate yet beckon with a dark promise. Perhaps nowhere is truly outside. The protagonist stumbles, disoriented, their mind grappling to differentiate between the hallucinations that flicker at the edges of sight and the cruel touch of reality. Shadows flicker into form. A figure barely there, flickering like a dying candle, beckoning silently. Could it be a friend? Or merely another figment of the mind's cruel illusions? The line blurs, the sensation of being watched, an oppressive presence lurking just beyond perception. They rub their eyes, trembling, trying to banish the visions, to anchor themselves to something tangible, but nothing remains static. A flickering sign appears in the distance, or perhaps it always has been there. A cryptic message burning into the dimness, rendered in distorted, fading letters. They're never really gone, it seems to say, or maybe it's just a fragment in their mind trying to cling to sanity. In that moment, uncertainty becomes a tangible force, wrapping around the soul with icy fingers, whispering doubts into their ears. Could this be another trap? Has the escape always been an illusion? Is the light in the distance a saving grace or a cruel mirage? Voices echo, soft, unintelligible, overlapping like a haunted chorus, intertwining with the whispers of the corridor. Sometimes they sound familiar, other times alien, yet they all evoke a growing sense of helplessness. The protagonist's resolve wanes as the hallucinations grow more vivid. A face, distorted and crying shadowed tears. A hand reaching out from the darkness, grasping but never quite touching. They scream internally, the sounds lost in the void, their mind fracturing under the weight of the unrelenting uncertainty. Time dilates here, hours or perhaps moments. What's the difference in this endless gray limbo? Each step forward feels like wading deeper into a nightmare spun from their own fears. Reality becomes a fragile membrane. They grasp at it, only to see it dissolve into the darkness once more. The sensation of being hunted, of losing grip on what's real, intensifies with each passing second. The walls seem to whisper secrets, their voices a dissonant chorus that can't be trusted, beckoning the protagonist to surrender to despair or cling desperately to the tiniest shred of hope. A sudden shift in the environment pulls them into a corridor bathed in unnatural light, flickering with every heartbeat. They look for an exit, the door, the staircase, any sign of salvation. But the structure constantly shifts, the landscape playing cruel tricks on perception. The possibility of escape feels like a cruel joke, dangling just beyond reach, always retreating into the shadows just as they approach. They grasp at the notion that freedom exists, somewhere beyond this nightmare, yet, deep down, they feel the icy certainty that perhaps they're already lost. Then, the cryptic message reappears, more urgent this time, pulsating faintly in the darkness. They tried to erase us, but they didn't. We're still here. The word, we, echoes in their mind, a haunting reminder of the collective struggle, a collective presence that refuses to be extinguished. A chill runs down their spine. Are these words a warning or a taunt? Because in the echoes of this place, it becomes impossible to distinguish the true from the false. What's real is constantly questioned, the truth slipping away like grains of sand through trembling fingers. In the midst of their spiraling doubt, a faint glimmer appears. A flash of metallic shine. Maybe the edge of an opening, maybe just an illusion. Their hand reaches out instinctively, caught between hope and dread. But as they move closer, the gleam dissipates, swallowed by the oppressive darkness once again, leaving only the hollow echo of their own heartbeat. A voice whispers softly, almost a plea, "You can't escape what was never truly left behind." A cold realization settles in. Perhaps the backrooms aren't just a place. Perhaps they are a reflection of the mind, a mirror to the chaos within, a never-ending maze of doubt woven from threads of guilt, fear, and regret. The labyrinth isn't just physical, it's psychological, eternal. The escape they seek might be nothing more than a fleeting illusion, a fantasy that will shatter once they reach the edge of consciousness. Their mind is a battleground, and the shadows are winning. In the final moments of this chapter, the protagonist stands alone in the abyss, eyes darting around as the shadows stretch ever closer. Their breath is ragged, their body trembling, yet an ember of defiant hope flickers deep within, an inkling that somewhere beyond the shadows, beyond the hallucinations, there might be a sliver of truth. Or perhaps, simply, the darkness is all there is, waiting for them to surrender. The question remains unanswered, suspended in the void. Is the escape real, or is it just another illusion? The final trick played by the relentless darkness that refuses to let go. As the screen fades in from darkness, a quiet, haunting stillness settles. The camera rests momentarily in a room that seems innocuous. Faint, diffuse light spills across the floor, illuminating a battered desk, a chair, and a window that shows nothing but swirling shadows. A figure sits slumped, their reflection flickering in the glass, limp, exhausted, haunted. It's almost as if they're waiting for something that will never come. And then, very slowly, they stand. Their footfalls are hesitant at first, then more deliberate as they move toward the door. The corridor outside is dim and endless, lined with walls that stretch impossibly into darkness. Every step echoes, an echo that bears no echo back in return, swallowed by the void. It's as if the space itself respires, alive and watching, unbound by the rules of what we call reality. The figure walks deeper into the maze, lights flickering overhead, casting shifting shadows that distort perception. The walls pulse softly, almost as if they breathe, in and out, like the chest of something unseen lurking just beyond the edge of sight. Every turn seems familiar yet wrong, as if the corridor is attempting to trap their mind, to fold back on itself. The air is thick with a sense of quiet surrender and thinly veiled menace, a reminder that the walls have witnessed countless stories, none of which end well. Suddenly, they stop. Their breathing is ragged. In their hand, a flickering device, perhaps a camera, a flashlight, or a fragment of memory, reveals the chaos behind, glimpses of the maze's endless, fractal design. Yet, the further they push, the more the space seems to warp. Walls bend unnaturally, perspectives tilt, and the creature, something primordial, eases just out of sight, pushing the boundaries of what the mind can endure. There's a brief flash, memories surge in their eyes. Faces lost to darkness, whisperings that echo without source. moments of clarity drowned in the overwhelming silence. It's a descent not just into the maze but into the core of a haunted consciousness, an interrogation of what's real and what's illusion. From within the labyrinth, distant echoes ripple, a faint, recurring whisper. This is not the end. For a moment, the camera lingers on the figure's face, pale, eyes shadowed, caught between hope and dread. They whisper something inaudible, and then, a collective surrender, the acceptance that perhaps this journey is eternal, a loop from which escape is an illusion. The scene begins to fade as they approach a door. It's plain, unassuming, yet somehow imbued with significance. They reach out and turn the handle. The door opens to a faint glow. Behind it, the darkness is peeled back to reveal nothingness, limitless, sprawling, a space beyond comprehension. A void that swells and contracts with unspoken secrets. As they cross through, the scene dissolves into a quiet, surreal sequence. Eternal night, the endless hum of the unknown, the faint flicker of distant lights that pulse like a heartbeat in the darkness. In this space, the very fabric of reality seems fragile, ready to unravel, to reveal that what we perceive as the encompassing universe might merely be a thin veneer hiding something far greater, something incomprehensible. And then, from the darkness, a ripple, a faint shimmer, like the surface of a pond disturbed by an unseen force, spreads outward. The camera begins to pull back, retreating from the figure, from the unending corridors, from the flickering lights. The walls, the maze, all shrink away until they're just a tiny fragment of a vast, cosmic darkness. Finally, it zooms out from what appears to be an ordinary room, a space seemingly mundane and familiar. The camera's lens widens, the shot becoming more distant, revealing the room in its entirety. The walls are plain, the furniture untouched, the windows showing only swirling shadows. But then, just as the viewer's mind begins to settle into the comfort of normalcy, faint flickers shimmer behind the walls, broken fragments of a labyrinth that might stretch beyond the very edges of reality itself. The last image is silent. The flickering intensifies just enough to suggest a presence larger than the room, larger than any human comprehension. It's a quiet warning, or perhaps an invitation, an acknowledgement that what lies beyond our understanding is not merely hidden but fundamentally unreachable, forever beyond grasp. The screen holds this uncertainty, this unspoken question hanging like a breath held in suspense before the inevitable. And then, the scene fades to black. No resolution, no answers, only the lingering echoes of something greater, something we are only beginning to glimpse. A glimpse that whispers of an endless beyond, waiting patiently just behind the walls of our reality, unseen yet always present.